Hello viewers, welcome to this special edition live on Africa TV as we discuss about the state of public emergency again, of course, because lawmakers in Banjul voted against the motion by the Gambia government to extend the state of public emergency, which ends today, and the 45-day state of public emergency approved by the National Assembly in April instituted the closure of borders, markets, and all other places of public convergence until this morning. Now, the Minister of Justice, who tabled the extension request before members of the National Assembly on Saturday, pointed out that all the regulations needed to be renewed before Monday, the 18th of May. And of course, today the National Assembly members are expected to go back to the Assembly again to continue the deliberation and, of course, consideration of the extension of the state of public emergency after its rejection on Saturday. Now, our team is live at the National Assembly in Banjul right now to follow on the proceedings. And I have our correspondent, Ibrahim Presba, on the line to of course discuss on the proceedings at the Assembly. Well, thank you very much, Ibrahim. Good morning and thanks for coming through. Well, why would of course I would ask, why would the National Assembly reject the request to extend the state of public emergency for another 45 days?
Yeah, thank you, Amadou. So where we are right now is actually the chambers in the National Assembly, the media lawn, where is also part of the National Assembly to give updates. We know, like you rightly said, that the extension of the state of public emergency was rejected by the National Assembly members on Saturday, and this session has been going on from Friday and the following day, but there is still a deadlock. So what I do right now is just to get you to one of the members of the National Assembly, of course, in parliamentarian for Basse, Mohamed Magazi is with me to give us a hint as to exactly what is happening today on the chambers behind me here. So, Magazi, welcome.
Thank you very much. Good morning, viewers. Ramadan Karib.
So what are we expecting today that the extension request by the government was rejected yesterday?
Thank you very much. What we are expecting today is to revise the situation, which is normal under Standing Order Clause 29, to rescind the decision of the Parliament, to reconsider what has been laid before us by the Minister of, by the Attorney General and Minister of Justice. We are in a situation, it's a global pandemic. We are in an emergency, it's also a health emergency. Sometimes this is normal in Parliament. We may not see the same thing in the same way, but later on, after gathering a lot of information, we can also change our decision. So
the Select Committee on the implementation of the powers, emergency powers by the National Assembly made recommendation that there is a need to extend the state of public emergency for 21 days, and Minister requested for 45. If you don't vote for that of the Minister, why not the one recommended by the National Assembly Select Committee?
As at now, you can see consultation is going on. Is to find an alternative. If it's not that of the Minister, why not that of the Select Committee? But in essence, if you look at it is not even relevant, because 21 days, the government can give itself 21 days, because this will elapse. The government may make another proclamation, and that proclamation may last for 7 days, and that 7 days may not meet the Parliament in sitting, so they can further extend it for 21 days. So you can see, in essence, whether we give it to them or we do not give it to them, there's already a legal ground for them to earn it. But what is important...
So meaning that the National Assembly, whether it acts or not, Cabinet can extend it by its own. Then what is the role of the National Assembly? It is, tactless, right?
This is not whether we want it or not, the government will play on. No, is this constitutional requirement. We'll know if the period that was approved elapsed. The government, the president, still have that constitutional mandate to proclaim for another state of public emergency, which can last for 7 days or for 21 days if the parliament is not in sitting. So that's why I say, whether we give it to them that 21 days or not, the government have already the legal ground, they earn it by themselves. But in order to respect the parliament, to give the respect, the due to the parliament, the respect that's due to the parliament. That's why the government has come in consultation to the parliament, so that this state of public emergency may extend it to another 45 days, which will not exceed 90 days if both combined together. In order for government to work on regulations, government to work on the methods, strategies in order how to manage, to control this pandemic in our country.
Honorable Magazi, why do you think that the parliament don't see the need to extend the period of state of public emergency?
The parliament also has reservations. They have also concerns. We need to be clear to them. They need also a lot of information before making the decision. If those informations are not together, it will be very difficult for the parliament to make a decision. But as of now, consultation is going on. And after listening also yesterday to the submissions of the Minister of Health, I think many people gathered enough information that can convince them to further extend the state of emergency to another 45 days. But later on, as you know, Parliament is about also politics. Politics also might be into a game. So you may do what your conscience give you, but sometimes you might be influenced also by your electorate.
I was saying maybe while government, or that the president Adama Barrow is asking for additional time that should be given to the government by the parliament, the opposition wouldn't go in for that simply because of political grounds.
Well, you could be, but what is important here is not Adama Barrow who is asking for this 45 days. It's Adama Barrow. Adama Barrow is just leading the government in seeking for these 45 days, but for the best interest of the country, because the overall objective is to save lives. And whose life is going to be saved? Nobody knows. So therefore, everybody here is not a stakeholder to analyze the situation the same way the executive is analyzing the situation.
The Minister of Health made it very clear that now was supposed to be peak period, but thanks to the restrictions and the measures in place, Gambia is still not counting thousands of cases. So National Assembly now rejecting or delaying the issue of extension, as it has been insinuated that the National Assembly don't care. So how will we respond to that?
Well, the National Assembly still care. As I told you, is the level of understanding sometimes that will affect your decision about any issue. But as I told you, a consultation we are going on, and parliamentarians continue to look for more information, to gather information as a tool, to make a better decision. And I think before the end of the day, we'll come to a very positive conclusion.
Thank you very much, Honorable Magazi. Amadou, that was Honorable Magazi, who is National Assembly member for Basse. He's made it clear that National Assembly goes by rules and procedures. So having the forced request by the Minister of Justice rejected doesn't mean the end for extension of state of public emergency.
All right, very interesting discussion there with Honorable Magazi. As he said, there could be politics or a game of politics in this COVID-19 game. But then that sounds very interesting. But in what situation has this rejection placed the Gambia?
So the rejection of the extension of the state of public emergency, puts Gambia at a serious risk, because it means that as of today, the border is open for those coming in, knowing that also the neighboring countries are also heavily struggling with the issue of COVID-19. Also, the issue of border is a problem already. Gambian border being so porous is being, emphasized over and time again. Now there is no legal binding to prevent people from coming into the country. So that is one aspect of the coin. But looking also inwardly, the issue of social distancing, as attested in the report of the National Assembly Select Committee on the implementation of these powers, emergency powers, made it very clear that, there are problems. People are not respecting social distancing. People are not, obeying a lot of rules like the public gatherings. So gatherings are happening in markets. It is also happening in various areas. So this is going to now continue. People can feel so free to continue behaving their normal way of life. No more the extraordinary situation. Looking at also the issue of places of worship, and other forms of public gatherings. So today the ban has been lifted, and hopefully people are going back to their normal way of life. Most importantly, the issue of commodities, there was a price control restriction on hiking prices. So to protect consumers in this country, there was also restriction of exportation of essential goods. So these are all protections that were offered by the emergency powers vested in the president, which the National Assembly, approved. So all that is going to cease momentarily until when another decision is taken.
All right. Now, the Honorable National Assembly member, of course, talked about consultations, as as you just said. Now, reading on the situation, how do you think this standoff could be amended to continue the fight against COVID-19?
So you need to come again with the questions because the line, cracked somewhere. But I bet you are asking about how will this compromise the fight on COVID-19?
Exactly.
It's sure, yeah. So the emergency powers means that the security forces are given extra, privilege, and then the government is at its own disposal to be able to coordinate things and then direct the management of, COVID-19, fighting for COVID-19 in the way they deem necessary. So, the situation is dynamic. What obtains in the Greater Banjul area might be different from the province's rural Gambia, but government will be at its own disposal to, decide as to how to manage and contain the spread of COVID-19. But now that the emergency powers, the state of public emergency has ended, so it means another thing must take over. Either people go back to their normal life or there is extension which is granted by the National Assembly.
All right. As we look forward to today's sittings, Ibrahim, of course, why couldn't that amendment be achieved last week?
So the amendment could happen. That is, yesterday the Minister of Justice, on behalf of the government, made the presentation and requested for 45 days extension. But the National Assembly didn't agree. But we also recall that on Friday, when the Select Committee for the National Assembly, in terms of monitoring the powers vested in the president on this emergency situation, presented final report through which it recommended for extension of 21 days instead of 45. But the National Assembly here didn't approve the recommendation. The report was adopted, but the recommendations were rejected. So now the National Assembly is likely today to do some amendment on what is presented by the Minister of Justice as of Saturday, then to activate the recommendation of the National Assembly Select Committee on the implementation of emergency powers, which will be 21 days. And that is likely to happen because right now we know there is consultations going on by the National Assembly. Usually by 10 o'clock, sessions will start. But today that is not the case because there is something at stake. The National Assembly is not an institution that will want to bear the blame of, being so much reckless in terms of these emergency measures. So they are trying to balance the ball so much that consultations are happening. And on the background, if you could see, that the parliament is yet to start. And as a reason, we are broadcasting live inside the parliament.
All right. Now, as consultations are going on, of course, before sittings would start, I would want us to take this opportunity, of course, or advantage and talk about corruption concerns raised by the health minister, at the assembly there on Saturday, which has been trending on the Gambian circles, both home and abroad. Now, I will, of course, ask, why must the minister of health take this line of revelations?
The Minister of Health on Saturday made it very clear to the National Assembly members that the issue of money, the involvement of funds in the fight against COVID-19 in the Gambia, in fact, complicated his work and complicated the work of health workers in this country. So it becomes very difficult now for them to focus. So he said that people are focusing on the money rather than on the COVID-19. And this was a startling revelation. So the Minister of Health was compelled to say such because in the report by the National Assembly Select Committee on the implementation of the emergency powers made it very clear in all the health facilities, the hospitals and health posts that they visited across the country, Banjul to Katong and Katong to Koina. So these are issues that health workers would say that they are, at risk. They are the frontline health workers managing cases of the COVID-19, in the front line without any allowance. They are not being given anything. So out of that, government proposed to see how best to give them as a matter of, people, taking risk, then they can get some of the benefits. So as a result now, how to share this becomes problem for the Minister of Health. So I think he was out of frustration, but also there were a lot of questions because all health posts, all health centers, they all said the same thing that, they are working while many people are at home. Everyone is, at liberty to stay at home. But those on the front line are going out, taking the risk for no additional pay. So this was, reports, repeated to the select committee. And in their presentation here on Saturday, it was highly amplified. So the minister was asked as to why are these people not benefiting? So he also presented the challenges where, there are indications of, endemic corruption at the Ministry of Health, to say the least.
Very well. Now, it appears there is a living thing at the Ministry of Health, corruption, and what are the possible repercussions?
So this is a serious allegation, and because the money involved is of taxpayers, because the government of the Gambia, made the pronouncement. The reports of environment here and there. $500 million is being budgeted or allocated for the fight against the COVID-19. These are national funds. They are completely different from what is being given by international, multilateral, unilateral partners. So this is money from the taxpayers. So if taxpayers got notification that health workers are working towards benefiting rather than protecting the people or taking care of the disease that is keeping people at ransom. So this is disappointment. So the repercussion could be there, but most importantly, how would it be received by the health workers, people who, might feel so guilty now to face the public, and whatever they do now, they are either called thieves or whatever name could be given to them. So that is a concern now. But it is a matter of time also to determine as to the extent of that repercussion. But it is something that we got to follow.
Indeed, because we are in a very critical situation now. But again, you said question has been asked and so on. But also another question that I will ask is, has the health minister gone too much into the internal affairs of his office?
The health minister might have been compelled to behave this way or to do this nature of presentation because we know that, the health facilities are many and staff are many. So if all staff are complaining on the same thing, that they are not getting money. So he said the problem is not his getting them the money, but the manner in which they will get the money. So he said when he requested, to get the list of those people who deserve pay. So that was a moment when even ghost workers were present as staff of the ministry. And this is a very serious, situation where people will entrusted with responsibility to take care of our health. National health issues are talking about money. So it was to an extent that creating junk name, and then people are posting themselves on different places just to get, the show that they should have better pay than the others. These are all issues that are very embarrassing for such an industry. The health ministry is very noble and industrious enough to have revelations like this. But the minister, one could understand that it is his frustration. He didn't expect people to behave like this, and they do. So he is left with no option than to tell the situation to the National Assembly, which is a very strong arm of government.
All right. Now, do you think that these revelations will affect or effect any positive change in the fight against COVID-19?
The revelations are likely to have some impact, especially in the fight against COVID-19, because now those involved in the management of affairs will be more careful and know that there is someone watching, and then the likelihood of corruption could definitely be something that they will not be compromised. So it is likely to take some effects, and then the public is there to celebrate these kinds of revelations.
All right. Like you said, health ministries, of course, are always known for decency, especially in their work and all that. But now, what does this mean for the Ministry of Health?
The Ministry of Health, has now got all eyes watching. So everyone is not watching whether. So I know we have the National Assembly member for Banjul North, who is the chairman of the Health Committee, will join me shortly. But before he comes in, I can tell you that now all eyes are on the Ministry of Health, that now this is a minister saying that these are his concerns. So it is up to the National Assembly now to use this opportunity to come up with, principles and then, procedure as to how they can prevent corruption, situations.
Okay.
So now I hand over to the Select Committee chairman of the National Assembly Select Committee for Health, who is Usman Silla. Silla will now talk to us about what is happening today. Silla, welcome.
Thank you very much. Yes.
So we are the parliament, and then, sessions are yet to start. This is very unusual. So what is happening?
Well, it's not unusual because, of course, the time was scheduled for 10, but sometimes we come and then it takes time before we commence. But anyway, today we are here to deal with issues according to our order paper. Today we're supposed to be considering the supplementary appropriation bill from the Minister of Finance, and that's that for today.
Yeah, what about how does this relate to the fight against COVID-19?
Well, actually, on Friday, the Parliament was reconvened for an emergency session to consider the request of the executive for an extension of 45 days of the state of public emergency. And when the matter was brought before the Parliament, we debated on it, and it was very unusual that this debate lasted for 2 days. And not only what makes it unusual was that this is the first time that the National Assembly met on a Saturday, which is a weekend. So this is the first time, but it was due to the fact that we could not have ended the debate on the motion requesting for an extension by the Attorney General and Minister of Justice. So it was continued on Saturday, and by the time the vote was taken, according to the Constitution, it requires 3/4 of the entire membership that should vote for an extension. But when we subjected it to vote, 25 opposed the extension, 23 supported it. So it was far short of what is required. I think the number should be 42 members that should have voted for the extension, but only 23 voted for the extension. So the majority of those who were here on Saturday voted against it. So that means that the extension was made after the first proclamation by the President on the 3rd of April. So that means on the 18th is the time for this 45 days would do. But that is when you're counting every day. But if weekends and public holidays are excluded, then it has to be beyond. But anyway, as we assume that it's today, that the state of public emergency would be ending. So therefore, there's nothing in place for it. And according to the standing orders, it would be out of place for the National Assembly to consider, because during the debate, some were even coming up with issues like 21 days. But the 21 days, Parliament cannot ask for 21 days because the President can have 21 days through proclamation. So they were requesting for 45 days. And as far as I'm concerned, I voted for an extension because I believe it's legitimate. This is health. This is not partisan politics. This is not sentiments. It's about life and death. Even if 5% of the population, those 5% of those who are going to be infected are going to die, it's life. And it's our duty as representatives of people to protect every life. Every life matters as far as we are concerned. Even if it is killing one person, it should be our duty to ensure that it does not kill that person, because it's our duty to protect lives. That's the reason why I voted for an extension. I believe it is too expensive for us to play with it. Like I said, it shouldn't be, it's not partisan politics. It shouldn't be sentiments. And this is science.
Do you think the voting has been somehow partisan or political? Because we know the President Barrow is leading. He requested for extension through his Minister of Justice. So why would the National Assembly reject such a request?
Well, you can ask those that voted against it, but for me, I voted for it. I said it's legitimate because it's science-based. The reason why they're asking for 45 days, according to the prognostics, the projections provided by the health officials, Gambia would be having the peak period in June. And by that, they say that, according to their estimates, about 181,000 Gambians are going to be infected without social distancing, without the precautions that they advise people to take. And that means out of these, 20% are going to be hospitalized. And look at our health system. 20% of 181,000. Can our hospitals sustain that? They cannot. So it is realistic. We cannot. So rather than doing the cure aspect, let's do the prevention aspect. And this is all about prevention. The regulations are all about, and this is not a lockdown. We are not asking people to stay. Regulations, as far as I'm concerned, they should be reasonable and something justifiable in a democratic society. And the other thing also is that the minister, when he was here on Saturday, he considered to some of the concerns raised by the National Assembly members that they are going to revisit this regulation to see how they can adjust it, so that the challenges, the implications, difficulties that people are facing can we see how to maneuver over it. So and then that's the reason why we said that I said that I should vote for an extension, because for me, as a member of the health committee, we know what it takes. We know that this is real, and if we are playing with it, we are playing with lives that should be naturally our duty to protect.
So we know that right now there is a lot of consultation happening, because early on I interacted with the chairman of the Special Select Committee, but we understand there is consultation. So what is likely to happen? Are you bringing the issue of extension back, or National Assembly is now moving on to leave the rest with the cabinet to decide?
No, what is possible is that two things are possible. According to clause 29, standing order 29, paragraph, I think 3, it would be out of order for the National Assembly to discuss what has been rejected. What can be done is that for that what has been rejected to be rescinded. So National Assembly can come and rescind that decision, that what we have rejected, we have rescinded it. Then in that case, there should be a notice for us to engage again. But there must be a notice given. That's one scenario. The other scenario is that the executive also has the power to make another proclamation while we are sitting, because we are sitting up to Wednesday. The president can do, if they are doing it before Wednesday, from now to Wednesday, it has to be 7 days for it to continue. Otherwise, you have to come back to the National Assembly to request for another extension. If it is after Wednesday, he can make a proclamation that can go for 21 days. So, and that means before coming back to us. So that means they can get, so the request for them to give us 21 days, to accept 28, which that is something he can do. So the question is 45 days. We need this 45 days. We need this extension of 45 days. Otherwise, the regulations are not going to be tenable. They anchor on the state of emergency.
What is likely to happen? Would the National Assembly rescind the decision of rejecting it, or actually you'll wait the cabinet?
I'm not a mind reader. I don't know what is in their minds, but for me, my position is very clear. I support an extension. Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you. So that was Usman Silla, chairman of the Health Committee, Select Committee on Health for National Assembly here, sounding his opinion on the importance of extension, so that he actually voted for it. And as chairman of the Health Committee, he thinks that, these are the two possibilities. They either, rescind the decision, that is to withdraw the rejection they did, and then continue debating on it, which is highly, possible here, or let the president declare another state of public emergency, and that will be 7 days while the National Assembly is sitting. But after Saturday, Wednesday, so meaning that the president will also have power, constitution, empowers him to declare another position of state of public emergency that would last for 20 to 21 days, Amadou.
All right, very, very interesting there. Of course. Now, how soon is the sittings going to start? Do we know? Because I know consultations are going on. There are still sideline discussion and all that. But are there any signs or indications that very soon the sittings will start?
Yes, so right now the situation remains virtually the same. So parliamentarians, few are on their right chambers here. Others are indoors to, look into what is likely to happen. But already, it's more of for the National Assembly to come back to the discussion all over. Will attract interesting scenarios. That is what you could have done yesterday or a day before, will now you have to swallow that and then bring some justifications, that is consulting standing orders here and there to, continue debating. But, as we continue engaging them, we are seeing, the diversity in opinion. So some of them we understand rejected the situation with the, state of emergency. So actually, that is the situation. So they voted against it, hoping that maybe the recommendation by the select committee on the implementation of powers of state of emergency could be reactivated, because that was a recommendation that was not part of what is adopted in the report. So these are all possibilities. But I'm sure if at all the National Assembly didn't do anything about that, like the Vice President said to us already, that, and the Minister of Health is alluding to the importance of extension. So the President will be empowered. He would likely, declare another state of public emergency in a televised version.
Now, let's discuss a little about the public emergency itself. It has been, 45 days extension, and which is coming to an end. Now, generally, how has the public perceived or, have been reacting to the extension and maybe, to the way people have been living on this period since the, the public emergency was extended?
In one group of argumentators will say that the National Assembly is somehow tactless. It shouldn't take them 2 to 3 days discussing such a simple matters. That is the view of many followers of Africa, that the situation is tense, and the public rely on experts, and if the experts are saying that now should have been peak period and COVID-19 is far from over, so why is the National Assembly not sounding the same? So this is a question that continue to haunt members of the National Assembly in various areas. But also another group will say that the economic loss that they are bearing right now is getting to the limit. So they want the restrictions to be lifted. In fact, all about this lockdown, the COVID-19 emergency powers should stop now, so that people go back to work. So they would now have to go to work with their own personal initiative of keeping hygiene, socially distancing, and things like that. So those are the arguments all over. But most importantly, it must be noted that also that the closure of places of worship like the mosque and the churches, as discussed here some 2 days ago, over and over here, that the public is concerned. This is a Muslim majority country where it is the month of Ramadan, especially around the end parts of Ramadan. The last 10 to 5 days are marked by a lot of prayers, a lot of visits to places of worship. So it is their view that the mosques should be open. So if the mosques are closed based on the issue of the state of public emergency, then they will hate the whole entire issue of state of emergency. So now it's up to government, like especially also when Senegal, last week the president announced that there are some ease in restrictions, like the places of worship are open, markets are partially also open. So there are a lot of, and some schools will now be reopened in Senegal, especially those on examination, situation. So Gambia is likely to copy that. So the public is already feeling like if it is possible in Senegal, where the number of cases are more, why not Gambia? So this is the challenge that the National Assembly members are confronted, because each one is representing a constituency and people are talking to them. They have enough time to engage with their people, and the Special Select Committee had also gone to many places. They have sounded people's opinion. So either way is possible, but right now the challenge remains, and this building here is very important,
Yeah.
and the decisions coming out from here, are what the country is waiting for now.
All right, very well. I think that was quite very interesting. Now, of course, you were just talking about some countries are easing restriction or COVID-19 restriction. Of course, we Senegal have did, but you are part of our COVID-19 team. Closely following the situation in the country, and of course, we have heard some National Assembly members raising concern about the public transport and all that. Take us through the process. What are the concerns that they have been highlighting at the assembly? And of course, others were also talking about the food aid that has been, given out by government. And some of the public are yet to receive theirs, which has been also another concern.
So food relief is being offered by the government, and this is supposed to address 84% of the affected communities, according to official statistics. So the distribution is on. We know there are a lot of controversies. Some have received theirs, others are yet to receive. So the issue of data management and, distribution procedure is greeted with a lot of, challenges right now. So we know there are also some theft, here and there, as to with those entrusted with the responsibility to share. So these are all issues that are going on. But the most important thing, people will tell you that the amount of food given to the people is not enough. It's not enough to keep people continuously indoors. So if that is what state of public emergency means for them. But we will speak to Bikama North, member of parliament, who is also here. He has been proactive in the debate here. We'll sound his opinion as to how it goes, right now. So we go straight to Honorable Alagi Dabo. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
What did you vote for?
Well, on Saturday? Well, I voted against the motion. That is the motion that requested for extending the period to 45 days.
So actually, the Minister of Justice, requested for the government that the state of public emergency needed to be extended. Like you rightly said, the motion could not proceed. So what is the way forward now?
Well, the way forward, I think, from what we were told on Saturday, the minister has to go back and then try to revisit the motion and perhaps to do the necessary amendments. I want to believe that amendment may bring down the number of days to as recommended by the committee to 21, I believe.
So the National Assembly is likely going to let the president do it for himself. So where would be the power for the parliament now?
You mean the president can do it for himself? Under which law? Under which law can the president do it?
The 1997 Constitution said he can, when the parliament is in session, he can declare a state of public emergency for 7 days. If the parliament is not on session, then for 21 days.
We are on the verge of trying to consider the extension or otherwise. And then if that process is on, well, I would not say the president should not do it or what, but I think as matter of procedure, the matter is before the National Assembly. They promise that the minister will go and then try to revisit the motion and do the necessary amendment. My position in the debate actually was, I'm not against any extension, but I did say we have to review the regulations and do the necessary amendments. Then thereafter we can do the extension. Precisely. For example, about the markets. Let's look at the regulations. What are the areas that created havoc on the people? The essence of the regulation to ensure that social distancing is achieved. Do we attain that in the markets? What do we do? What measures should we do to address the issue of the social distancing? And then try to address the issue of the havoc that is also created on the people. In my view, creating the number of hours for the market to be open. For example, market to be open from 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. for food retailers. Now you are making people to rush at the market within 2 hours. Nobody go to the market from 6 and then 7 or 8. Usually most people go to the market around 9, 10. That means if you allocated that time in that this is the time that the people should go and buy the food items, that means that is going to be a rush hour. That's going to make the market to be congested. Make the market completely open for every retailer to come. Now, people will have the free will anytime they want to come to the market to do their shopping, they can do. There, the congestion can be realized. What order make the market to be congested? Those who retail these small commodities, for example, vegetables and others, try to relocate them to another area. Then that will make the market to be decongested. Then there will be able to address the issue of the congestion and social distancing can be achieved. But timing the market opening and closing is not addressing the issue. That has to be looked into and then amended. The second one, that's very key, that's the issue of the mosques. There is no sense in closing the mosques. The closure of the mosques is not applicable. Few areas complied, most of the areas are not complying. Now let's look at it and try to strategize. Already other places are observing their own strategies. They don't call for prayers. They strictly adhere to the time for the 5 daily prayers. They just come. At that time, then they observe their prayers within a short period and then disperse. Can we do that, strategize with them? Is it Islamic for them to observe the social distancing, the spacing? If it's allowed, yes, we apply that. But the total closure is not applicable because only few mosques are observing it. Vast majority of the mosques are not observing it. Now we are still at threat. Let's review it and allow the way it can work. The third one, that is the public transports. The restriction made it for the capacity to be reduced to half. Then they said the fares also is reduced to not half, but they are reduced as well. Now we made a query and then that complaint was noted. They noted and then they maintained the prices. Later they reduced the pump price. Diesel, I think by $7, petrol by $9. But yes, still, the drivers are saying that's not enough. They increased their fares drastically. So the burden is on the masses. How do we address that? Reducing the fuel pump prices does not address the issue. We recommended for the pump price to be reduced to half. If the capacity of the vehicle can be reduced to half, let the pump price also be reduced to half, then the fares can be maintained. There, the drivers would not increase the fares, and the issue of the social distancing can be addressed. These are some of the areas.
Yeah, exactly. These are very crucial points you've mentioned. And then looking at the final report of the Special Select Committee on the implementation of the powers on the state of emergency, said that the National Assembly would be willing to extend the state of emergency for 21 days on condition that the restrictions will be enforced. Wasn't that enough for that recommendation also to be, retained?
The restrictions will be enforced, but the ones that are enforceable. There are many restrictions that are enforceable. And that's what I said. The ones that are enforceable need to be revisited. Let there be flexibility in a manner that is going to be enforceable. So that is the thing. And that's what I'm trying to put across. Let's review it, do the necessary amendments, and be very flexible so that we can apply what is applicable. And what we want to achieve is to ensure the social distancing is observed.
In the public view that without the state of emergency, so meaning that the border is open so anyone can come in, so the National Assembly is bearing some blames from the public. How would we respond to that?
Do you agree that the borders are closed? In principle, it's stated that the borders should be closed. But in practice, are they closed? Are they closed? Go to Farafenye. The border is open. Go to Dar es Salaam. Go to anywhere. I am in Brikama. Senegalese can come in and enter in the Gambia at any time. You go to the South Bank, the same thing is happening. So what is on paper is not practical. So this is the situation. That's why I said in my deliberation, we need to strengthen the monitoring of the borders so that the border closure that is mentioned in the restrictions can be addressed. But this one is not adhered to. That's the reality.
So you seem to be bringing issues that are likely to take the National Assembly another days. So how achievable are these plans? So what should be done to get these recommendations happen to extend the National Assembly?
Well, what we propose to the minister, go and then do the necessary amendment of your motion. And then if the necessary amendment is done, whatever recommendation we are to make on the restrictions, that one can be noted and then they act on them. This is the only way forward. We are not against the extension. But what we are trying to say, we have learned from experience for 5 days, and then we were able to read, we were able to analyze the extent at which the extensions were enforceable. And then the havoc that it created on the people. How do we try to reconcile the two? And then if they are not ready to do that, it will be very difficult. Let's try to look at it. What is applicable, we try to apply that. This is the point what we are trying to put across.
So meanwhile, the border is open, no legal bound for anyone to come in. So
let's not talk about the closure of borders. Our borders are not closed.
Yeah, but that's your opinion right now. But by declaration, it is short.
The borders are very porous. Senegalese can come in and out of the Gambia at any time.
They could be prosecuted.
Yeah, they can be doing that. What we are saying that we need to strengthen and intensify that monitoring exercise. I'm not saying that it's not possible. It is very possible. But this was lacking. Let that happen. And that should be part of it. We are not against that one. What we are observing, these are the areas that I talk about. The issues surrounding the market, the issues surrounding the mosques, and that of the transports. These are the areas we look at. For the borders, they are what the government should do, the security forces should do to intensify the monitoring exercise.
So meanwhile, the people are feeling free to do whatever they want because the public emergency has expired and it is pending on what the National Assembly does. So right now, would the National Assembly accept some blame as to whatever happened between the period of this duration?
What kind of blame?
People social distancing.
When social distancing is it realized? Look at it. Social distancing. Is it happening? What kind of blame? When it's a restriction, it should be meaningful. It should not just be by words. It should be by word of parties. Is it the reality? And this is what we are trying to put across. I was in Brikama Market by 7 a.m. today. Believe me, the market was almost full to capacity by 7. I have this belief that before even the arrival of the people who buy from the vendors. Now what I'm suggesting is that those people who make the market to be congested, like those who sell these small items, especially vegetables, the ingredients, they can be relocated to the fields. There will be spaces in the market. Then there, There will be no rush for people. People can come at any time they feel like coming to the market, and the congestion can happen. What we want to see that the social distancing is realized, and through that we can have the social distancing. But the idea of trying to open the market at this time, close it at this time, it's not working. It merely make the market to be congested. Let's try to address how best we can decongest the market, because the essence is.
Let's look at the complaints from the commercial industry. So businessmen are talking about the economic impact that the state of emergency has on them. So do you think the food relief also offered by the government right now would be enough to extend for the extent emergency situation?
The food relief that was provided, I think it is meant for the 40 days that we are that's about to be expired. If there will be any further extension, we are expecting there should be another supply that's supposed to be coming. This one is not meant for any extension that's supposed to come. We are worried and concerned about the delay. We cannot say much about the distribution, because there was no report to us how and the way and manner in which it is distributed. The quantity that's to be given to each and every household has not been reported to us. So on that, I cannot comment on that.
I will not keep you longer, but just on the issue of declaration. When the president did the declaration, it was formal, and now you're requesting for amendment on the request for extension. So government could always do it formally, but what sort of assurance do you want to vote for extension?
My position is very clear. In my deliberation, when I was taking part in the debate, I indicated that I will be in for the extension, provided that we will review the regulations and do the necessary proposal for amendments on paper. And the minister should give us the assurance that they will put into consideration those proposals for amendments. Key among those ones is the issue surrounding the markets. And the second one is the closure of the mosques. And the third one, the transport system. It's a pleasure.
That was Honorable Dabo, National Assembly member for Brikama North, making it very clear that he is not against the extension of state of emergency, but the situation should be taken very seriously, Amadou. So not just by pronouncement, but there must be assurance by the government that should there be another extension, it should be treated very well, and it should be enforced. And there should be also enforceable rules on the next request.
All right. Now, what's likely would happen? I'm just asking because it looks like there is different position from the National Assembly members that you have spoken to this morning so far. Can we say that maybe the government would come up with an alternative, maybe?
Sure. Yes. These are the kind of, bilaterals and multilaterals going in the chambers right now, because the sessions are yet to officially start. So now it is what option? Because the National Assembly now to continue without, completely dealing with the issue of state of emergency is the issue. Many people feel it is not necessary to extend it because the first, experience was not good. It was like as if nothing happened. So for them to have it extended, it has to be serious. So quickly, we also have the Monday schedule. Actually, after records of votes and proceeding, those are the formalities in the National Assembly. Motion should have been late today, and the first would have been the 2020 revised estimate of revenue and expenditure, which should have been done by the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs. So should have been there to do that first motion. Then later on, they would consider, we had to consider the debate and committee of the supply of revised estimate of revenue and expenditure. So these are two issues that the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs should have been here to do. All these days he has been in chambers. But the National Assembly doesn't seem settled, so they are still negotiating and then having some indoor discussions, in their corners, as you can see, so it's a matter of time now to see them. Actually, Tuesday is supposed to be laying of papers and reports. So what will happen to this agenda, especially today? The Minister of Finance is supposed to be here to lay his own budget estimate, revised budget estimate for the 2020. And this is an expenditure. So nothing of such is happening right now.
Going back to what Honorable Alaji Dab was talking about, this of the markets and of course social distancing, closure of mosques, and of course the transport issues also. Well, again, I would ask, we have, of course, not that some of the public have been so much concerned about that. Can we expect some changes or recommend, or should I say, slight, changes from government in terms of the measures taken in the areas of market, close of markets, and of course the close of mosques, and also in the transport sector to ease some of those restrictions?
So, like the National Assembly member for Brikama North make it very clear that it has not been fair in his view that markets are open, so mosques or prayers of worship are shut. So he's sounding like it is not fair and there should be equality in purpose. So if that is not achievable, then he is not someone who will vote for such extension for the similar reason. So this is an issue. And then the other aspect of the discussion, some people in the provincial Gambia are not allowed to have their open markets. The weekly lumos, the monthly lumos are not happening. And those are the only avenues through which they can do their shopping, buying and selling, and get some earnings for their families. So that is not happening. So why should those in the greater Banjul area, the urban areas, are able to go about their daily lives? So this is also not a fair treatment of taxpayers, for the same amount. So, and this is happening at the time that, Gambia has recorded another new case. So as of last night, we got notification from the Ministry of Health that the number of cases recorded in the Gambia since March are now 24.
Yeah.
One additional case, and that one traveled from Guinea-Bissau via Senegal to the Gambia. So this is another issue, meaning that the number of cases, while people are discussing about the state of emergency for or against it, more cases are being recorded, and it's a matter of time for us to know whether there is another additional case, because that is like the typical of the day. Every day, every few days, so there is a new case. Not a large number of cases, but at least the number of cases are increasing in the country now.
Exactly, and like you said, another case registered yesterday, taking or bringing the number to 24 cases. Now, on the delay of the today's sittings of the National Assembly, can we say maybe is a pressure, or the National Assembly would want to avoid the same scenario of that of Saturday? What do you think?
So Saturday was not supposed to be a sitting day, but given to the nature of the emergency situation at hand, so the National Assembly, unanimously voted for, sitting on Saturday, but that didn't help because, the idea or the expectation that they would extend it didn't happen, but also it gave National Assembly members the opportunity to express their points of view. And now each group is now protecting their arguments before the speaker, that there must be amendment and there must be a more serious note from the government for the National Assembly to support the extension. What we know now, if at all the National Assembly is done with the issue of extension or not, and going by yesterday's vote or Saturday's vote on the rejection of the extension request by the Minister of Justice, then it will be left to the President to declare another state of public emergency, which would last for 7 days, because the National Assembly is sitting. After this extraordinary session, then the President can also choose to come up and then declare for a period of 21 days, meaning that the National Assembly would have, then just leave the President to do it for himself. But at least it would be more honorable for the National Assembly to do it here, because these are the representatives. They must have done a lot of consultations. So they argued, and based on the merits of the need for it to be extended, that is the real government, and that will enforce also the checks and balances, and not letting the ball be in one quarter of the field, which is an indication of, corruption,
Yeah.
right?
Now, going through, of course, by the paper that you have in there in your hands, you talked about the finance minister, of course, coming to table a motion. But what other thing would happen? Is there any thing that shows that
So,
the state of the emergency will be discussed today?
For today, after laying the motion, that concerns the 2020 revised estimates of revenue and expenditure,
Yeah.
and then consideration, debate, and committee of supply on the revised estimates of revenue and expenditure by the Honorable Minister for Finance and Economic Affairs. So that is for the day today.
Wow.
So then
So-
Tuesday will feature some records of frauds and National
Yeah,
Assembly formalities.
I was just asking. That means then there will be no discussion on the issue or matter of the state of public emergency, whether there'll be extension or vote or whatsoever.
So the extension about public emergency doesn't appear on the order paper today. So this is the fifth assembly, exchequer and extraordinary sessions, for the 2020. So we will now, link up to another member of parliament.
Okay.
So who will take us through some of the issue here, because you seem to be asking what else is happening.
Exactly. What will happen
So
today?
our-
As
The youngest parliamentarian. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So what is happening today? The sessions are yet to start, and the place is quiet. We can see in chambers, the speaker is not in yet.
All that I know is all about the issue of this extension for the state of public emergency. What I know, this motion that was tabled by the Justice Minister was rejected by the entire National Assembly members, or majority of the National Assembly members. And now that what we have on the other paper, that is not inclusive. So as a result of that, I don't know, I cannot ascertain whether they will come back to seek the same request or not. But what I know, according to the standing, the order paper for today is not actually there. So maybe they are going in for that negotiation, that consultation, and all those stuff. But we are waiting to see, because the order paper can always be revised. It depends on what they are coming up with, and the standing order can always be used to revise the order paper.
So meaning that the National Assembly is done about extent of state of public emergency. So what did you vote for?
I voted for no. And the issue is actually I am not against the extension of state of public emergency. Because if suppose I am against it, I will have not endorsed the former 45 days. That was given to them. And we did that in order to ascertain their performance, to grade them, to rate them based on the 45 days before any other extension. But fairly enough, honestly enough, having looked at what we have passed through during the 45 days, the recommendations, the regulations are not adhered to, are not implemented. For the fact that the executive did not really work towards that. So as a result of that, it will be difficult for me to give them another 45 days. That is why I have to reject the motion that was tabled by the Justice Minister. And that is as a result of my vote, no.
So in your view, this government is not serious enough to deserve your vote to extend state of national emergency?
Yeah, definitely. There's no seriousness in this, because honestly, you listen to the Justice Minister or the committee that we tasked to go and monitor whatever that is surrounding COVID-19. They indicated to us in their report that the authorities that are responsible to implement the regulations, they were even waiting for the Justice Minister to serve them those documents in order for them to start the implementation, meaning they were not actually informed about everything. But we are in a critical situation, and you don't have to be told, you don't have to be informed, you don't have to be served in order to start what you are supposed to do. Emergency things, you need to treat them in an emergency way, and this is what I was expecting. But could you imagine the authority responsible? They are not even doing anything in order to have that access to access that document in order to start what they have to do. There is no seriousness in this.
Previously, you adopted the report of the Special Select Committee on the implementation on the powers here on these emergency situations, but also the recommendation for 21 days were not respected. It also concerns the same thing, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was not respected. It depends. For me, I am in for the 41 days, to be fair enough. But the Attorney General, the Minister of Justice, what they are looking for is 45 days. And they came to table that motion. So it is that motion I am against. It is not the 21 days. And the people need to understand this. For me, I cannot keep on giving you that 45 days period upon period, and at the end of the day, you are not doing anything to help the people out there. It will be difficult with me. And that is why I cannot just accept the 45 days. Even today, if they happens to table the same 45 days, I will still maintain my position. But with the recommendation of the committee, honestly, I will vote in for it.
So what sort of assurance are you looking for now? Or does the National Assembly need to go in for extension? Or maybe it is enough, no extension is required, right?
Well, for me, I will still go in for, because we are in a critical situation and the National Assembly can be blamed for both. One, if we don't go in for any extension and the virus keep on spreading, moving from one person to another, transmitting in other words, then the National Assembly could be blamed for that, for not giving the executive the authority to go ahead and make sure that the regulations are implemented. But again, if the extension is given and the regulations are not implemented, then you will still realize that the National Assembly could be blamed for that, for actually with the people that we represent, because they will say you keep on increasing this and still now we continue having the disease or the virus moving from one person to another. So what is the essence for the extension? So these are two things that we are actually in, and it is very difficult for us to take that decision. But all that I know, as long as I am concerned, I can go in for an extension, but not actually the 45 days.
Right now, as it is the 45 days extended by the National Assembly in April, ends today. So today, borders are legally open. So the market, social distances, no one is bound by any regulation to respect today. And the transport issue is also there, public gathering, all of them. So who is responsible for whatever happens tonight?
Yes, I won't say the authorities are responsible, because still they have the power to observe or to implement the regulations. The powers are still with them until and unless the days given to them elapse, and that is yet to be. So obviously, anything that happened within that period, then they are responsible, because we have given them the mandate. But notwithstanding, the National Assembly Special Committee also is there to monitor whatsoever that is happening. So these two organs, they must work hand in glove. So because of that, then I will encourage all organs of government to come together to utilize whatever that they have so as to fight COVID-19. But they cannot work separately.
So why does it take long for the National Assembly to be done with this? Friday, Saturday, there was discussion, and it is today's sessions are being delayed, and likely the issue may pop up again. Why is it not done? The National Assembly finds it very difficult to move on.
Yeah, just like as I said, consultation is ongoing, and the executive with the National Assembly Authority, of course, they are making that consultation. And as I said, that is not part of the agenda today. And they want it to be part of the agenda today. That is the order paper. So this is the consultation that is going on. There is nothing like the National Assembly cannot still take up a decision. We have already taken a decision for rejecting the motion. So meaning it's up to them. If they are really serious and confident and be able to defend what they have to bring to us, let them prepare themselves and come. We can always revise the order paper and have a discussion on what they have to tell us in this and take our final decision. So for me, I don't find it difficult to take whatsoever decision. All that I need to do is to listen to what they have to tell me, and from there I will analyze and make my final decision.
So it is insinuated that some parliamentarians also rejected it because the mosque are shut. Many people say it's not fair that prayers of worship are shut because of emergency. What's your take on that?
Yeah, well, people are saying this, but me, I have a different view. And I even heard people saying it is based on political line because the opposition are the one against this. But I can tell you, every individual here, you are considered an opposition because there is no ruling party. My party, any other party, because coalition, there is no more coalition. So as a result, we are all opposition. So who is correct and who is wrong? If I voted yes, and I think that that yes is to the best interest of the people I represent, so I feel that I am correct, I am not wrong. So if another person there voted no, and he feels that his no is the best interest of the people that he represents, so who is wrong and who is correct? I think we are all doing what we really think that is to the best interest of our people. So to me, there is nothing like opposition or party line because in my party, others voted for yes, others voted for no. In the UDP, others voted for yes, others voted for no. So where is the party line here? So I'm not just observing or realizing that or taking that into consideration or having agreed to what people are saying in respect to that. Thank you very much.
Amadou, you can see, so at the National Assembly, honorable members, one after the other, has their own, reservation or inspiration about the issue. But what makes it more interesting is because it is about 11 and the National Assembly is still yet to begin session. This is a very unusual. We understand that the cabinet is also engaging the National Assembly. Okay, speaker has just come in, so I'm not sure we can continue broadcasting. We link straight to the chambers and then we understand notification on the speaker to come. So that is it, Amadou.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Ibrahim Press. But there, of course, live from the National Assembly. The speaker just stepped in, and of course, we link you live for live proceedings in the House.
Let thy blessing be set upon us here in this house assembly, grant us that we may treat and consider all matters that shall come under our liberation, in so just and faithful a manner, to promote thy honor and glory, to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of this country, and of those whose interests thou hast committed our life. Good morning, honorable members. Listen now, Good morning, honorable members. Welcome back to today's sitting. And under our standing orders, 2011, Section 13, the Speaker may at any time suspend the sitting or adjourn the assembly. So, under that relevant clause of the standing orders, I wish to adjourn the sitting of this assembly till tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Thank you very much. So, the sitting is hereby adjourned till tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Thank you.
So, so you can see actually the National Assembly, the sessions has been adjourned right now. So at the National Assembly, we just witnessed the adjournment of sessions at the National Assembly. National Assembly. So the speaker came in to, observe the prayers. And after the prayers, so what we understand is adjournment of the session until tomorrow, Tuesday, the 19th of May, meaning that even what was on the other paper, that is the revised budget, expenditure, and revenue, is no more to be discussed. The Minister of Finance should have been here to table two motions, but at the moment, so meaning that the sessions are to be adjourned. And this means also the initial, comment by the Honorable National Assembly member, whether there might be the issue of extension on the state of public emergency will be the issue or not, which was rejected yesterday by this parliamentarian, is a concern now. We knew there was consultation before the sessions begins, that among National Assembly members, understandably also cabinet ministers were around to see how best to bring back the issue of the extension, which was rejected because it was tabled by the Minister of Justice yesterday. But National Assembly members felt that the merits are not enough, looking at the experience so far, that the first 45 days, period of emergency was not treated with the regards it deserved. So people keeps coming and going. Borders were not, shut. The borders are porous. The enforcement is not in order. So right now, we just talk to Honorable Silla quickly. So the sessions have just been, adjourned for tomorrow. What does this mean?
Well, that means that, this session was primarily convened based on the request of the executive. So we cannot proceed with anything because all the motions that are supposed to be dealt with are from the executive. So if they're not here, there is no point in meeting. So that's the reason.
The executive is not here.
They're not here. The executive is not here.
Any reason given for them not?
Well, I don't know. I just don't know, but they're not here. And that's the reason why we cannot proceed. We are supposed to be dealing with motions that are supposed to come from them, and they're not here to present, to table those motions.
Is this a normal situation?
Well, no, it's not normal. It's not normal. Well, they're supposed to be here and they're not here. So I just don't know. You ask them why they did not come.
That is Honorable Silla, and knowing that the situation is critical, maybe talk to the Deputy Speaker right now, who is Mohamed Sane. Honorable, this iAfrica TV, we've just witnessed the adjournment of session. What went wrong?
No, I can't say much on that, really. I think the office of the Speaker will certainly make clearance on that. Let me just stop there, because really, I cannot comment on that. The office of the Speaker, maybe if you go and meet the Speaker or the clerk, they will be able to tell you exactly what is the purpose of adjourning the session to
Is this a usual?
So really, I think the office of the clerk, as I said, will be in a better position to give you a proper explanation. Thank you.
So that is the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Mohamed Sane, who said that it is not a normal situation, but he wouldn't able to give further information about it. But we also got another Honorable. So the social. Yes, so Amadou, you can see around. So the situation is a little bit tense and complicated. So, but we have here a couple of them who want to say something. And so, Honorable, you can interview because we got the order paper where the Minister of Finance was supposed to be here. And what were all these consultations for earlier?
No, the consultations are very, very necessary. As an assembly, whatever we do must be in line with the standing orders and with the constitution as well. So as a result, we don't want to flout either of those laws. So that's why we need to give ourselves more time to do the right thing for the Gambian people. So that was the essence of the whole consultation, because no one is perfect. No one has monopoly of knowledge. So where you feel you have ear in one side or another, you need to give yourself to do more consultation. So as a result of that, we need to again give ourselves more consultation, as I said before, to do the right thing in accordance with the standing orders and the constitution of the Republic of the Gambia.
What were the major issues you discussed earlier on? What did you want to do?
No, whatever we want to look at, because there was an issue, I think that we all witnessed yesterday. It was torn down, but we feel that it is necessary and essential that a state of emergency, either 14 or whatever amount of days it is very, very necessary to allow the government to put in place the necessary mechanisms to ensure to help the nation in the fight against COVID-19. So this is very, very essential. So where we cannot come to terms, we have to look at where can we compromise. Because whatever matters, irrespective of political affiliates, what matters is the Gambia first. So every national assembly should work towards the betterment of the Gambia. That's the bottom line. My place.
Amadou, you can see here at the chambers, National Assembly chambers in Banjul, the speaker should have been behind me if it was a normal session. Now, the expectation was for the cabinet to come and continue pursuing its agenda on whether to extend the state of public emergency or not, with the amendment, recommended by the National Assembly as of Saturday. Friday and Saturday should have been heard today, but none of them, according to parliamentarians, are here. So this is somehow a standoff, which the National Assembly will now be compelled to adjourn session until another day.
All right. Of course, like you said, an unusual situation there at the National Assembly. Now that the sittings have been adjourned to tomorrow, of course, the initial 45 days also has elapsed. Where those days leave Gambians as we speak?
Outspoken Honorable quickly.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, so because right now, like the Deputy Speaker said that, he is not comfortable going into why the cabinet did not come or ministers are not represented here. We knew that the Minister of Finance should have been here. Otherwise, the Minister of Justice. Okay, we have Honorable Amadou Kamara. How are you?
Fine, Alhamdulillah, I'm fine.
What is going on here right now?
Actually, we're supposed to have a session today, but as dictated by our standing orders, the speaker came and adjourned the session based on her powers. For the reason advanced, I don't know. There is no reason that she gave, because they have the powers to do so. That is well okay and it is in line. But to me, my thinking, I think the executive is supposed to be here. They are not here. I don't know why they are not here. So that's how it is.
So how would you interpret this? Is this a respect to the National Assembly?
From what end? Are you in this session or from the executive not being here?
The absence of
actually, I think the executive wouldn't just disrespect the assembly. Like, I wouldn't say that, no, because they are very cooperating since the inception of this assembly. I think they just might have some issues at their hand, or we could have even deal with our internal issues here, because we have some internal issues that we should have dealt with. But I think probably the speaker adjourns the session based on concrete grounds.
We know that there was a lot of consultations in the morning. What were you engaged in directly?
Yeah, for us, since we came in the morning, we are discussing, because if you could recall, on Saturday, we made a decision here to not to pass the motion by the Attorney General, that is to extend the state of public emergency for another 45 days. So since we came as members of National Assembly, especially me personally, somebody whom I'm concerned about this COVID-19 pandemic, we are doing some consultation and see how best we can accompany the executives in this crusade, because definitely this is something we are invited to accompany the executive, like the state of public emergency, to extend it for another 45 days. They came, they said they are looking for extension. They all know, and we all know, the president have the powers to declare a state of public emergency based on the constitution which you know it will last for 7 days if Parliament is not in session, and which you know that if Parliament is not in session, it will last for 21 days. So they have all that within their remits, but they choose to come here for us to extend the previous 45 days that we've given them for another 45 days. But unfortunately, and it was very unfortunate from the side of the Parliament, that decision was not taken. We taking the negative side of it, and I think it's something which you know that it does not tell well from the Parliament, from my own point of view. Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much.
So, Amadou, as you can see, this is a complicated situation because it is now an issue between the executive and Parliament, which are all, arms of government working in line with each other. So, for the absence of the cabinet ministers today without prior notification to the National Assembly is something which is very unusual. So parliamentarians cannot preempt as to the reason, but it is absolutely abnormal. But for the National Assembly also to, suspend sessions for the day or for adjourn for another day means, that the whole day might be wasted today. But we just move around to speak to one honorable member. I know the one for Serekunda is here, which there is some private discussion, but we will quickly talk to, if we get a chance to speak to Honorable Halifa Salah, who for Serekunda to throw some explanation here. But before then, Honorable, before you go quickly, so it is you can see on the background, not all honorables who want to say something, Amadou.
All right. Of course, very, very interesting moments there at the National Assembly, like you said. Now, of course, like I asked earlier, that the sessions have been adjourned to tomorrow, and of course, the initial 45 days has elapsed. Where does this puts Gambians or leave Gambians as we speak?
So the questions are somehow cracked somewhere, but I think you are requesting for what the Gambians will react to this. But sure, every abnormal situation is likely to be confronted with that utmost attention in the public. So no one could control that. And then this one is just going to be one of the events that will result to a lot of discussion because one wouldn't assume that the cabinet is trying to hide or dodge from the National Assembly, which is a big challenge. Meaning that for the past few days, the National Assembly has been very, very much, rigid, and you could see how much they review issues with whoever is before them. So this is the Parliament doing its job, and if the day is called for without any representative from the cabinet, could lead to suggestion that the cabinet is dodging. So, but it is open for discussion. We will be following what the public thinks about this. But like I said, we continue pursuing some members of parliament. We know that the chairman of the Special Select Committee is also speaking, but we just want to try to take an opportunity here, which is the closest to us, but so this is the consultation. You can see consultation happening. One is just here, and this is two honorable members. And looking at the media is also left with no option but to talk to anyone around. So the rest have already left. So meaning that is an adjournment day.
Can we expect anything from cabinet or from the executive, maybe to explain the reason, or for what reason why they did not attend to their sittings?
So National Assembly members will, in the first place, say that before Parliament would bring clarification, they could have notified them to prepare in advance. So otherwise, it means if there is an ulterior motive. But we know that there were a lot of recommendations given to the Minister of Justice yesterday. So he should have been available to maybe observe the adjustment and amendments that the National Assembly requested for them to, pass the extension he requested for. Otherwise, as the order paper dictated today, the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, who is regular at the National Assembly here, could have been here then to table his motions. But either of these options are not available for today, and the assembly is left. So let us shift to Honorable Alifa Salah to ask, the day is session has been adjourned, Mr. Salah. What went wrong?
The session is an emergency session, and it was convened based on the request of the executive. A state of emergency has been declared and extended for 45 days by the National Assembly. And we told them that before the expiration of the emergency, it will always be advisable for them to come to Parliament. And they have complied with that. Now, they have requested for an extension of 45 days. Why the extension? According to them, so that they can effectively develop the architecture to fight COVID-19. We've convened, they've made their case. The health minister has made his case. But we had a special select committee that had followed the whole process for these 45 days. They have given their report. We've considered the report. We've seen that that committee now can start working with the other committees of the National Assembly based on their respective recommendations so that we can beef up those recommendations and build up the capacity of the National Assembly to carry out its oversight responsibility. The 21 days that the committee originally proposed had to be put aside because they are the ones who said we should extend the state of emergency. It is the executive that should tell us what it needs. And what they told us is 45 days, and we had to interrogate that. Now, the National Assembly could have come up with a proposal that no, before the motion is decided, that no, we prefer the 45 days to be reduced. For what purpose? For the minister to amend his motion. Just like he amended his motion before from 90 days to 45 days, we could have insisted also in a discussion to convince him that he should amend his motion. But we did not do that. Since we did not do that, what did we do? We proceeded to vote. And when we voted, the motion was defeated. So once a motion is defeated, it means now you can only, well, some members wanted to raise another motion, but that is not in line with our standing orders, because standing order 29 is saying that once a motion is passed, you cannot come again and raise another question on the same motion within the same session. So it means that you must first rescind what you have done, which means that your decision that you made yesterday would not stand, and then you can proceed. And that is precisely what we are yet to agree to do. Because
quickly, because we've seen the sitting on Friday and Saturday, which is unusual Saturday, the National Assembly is not able to resolve all these matters at a go. Why is it difficult?
It's not difficult. It's not difficult. What is important now is for each Gambian and the National Assembly to understand what the Constitution says and what the laws say. We have an illness, COVID-19. You can declare a state of emergency, and what Gambians must bear in mind, declaration of a state of emergency is just a declaration. It does not give any other power to a president other than to rely on Section 35 to make regulations. And it is the regulation that you enforce. But if it is left to just declaration, then it's meaningless. That is what should get in the head, because it's a declaration of state of emergency. That's why when the first declaration was made, it came with certain conditions. You've heard me say here that all those conditions were unconstitutional and that they should be removed. And you can see that it is removed. Declaration is a declaration. And that is under Section 34 of the Constitution. From the declaration, now you have power under Section 35 to make regulations. And the regulations under the, imagine, it gives you an act, and the act gives you the other powers. Now, what is important is to bear in mind that if we are not sitting, the president has power to make a declaration of a state of emergency, and it will last for 21 days. As it stands now, if we adjourn, sign a die, it means that the president can declare a state of emergency and it will last for 21 days. And that's what we are saying as a national, it should last for 21 days. Some people, some said it should not exist. Now, the second dimension is this. The regulations are what matter, because that's where the power lies. That is what impact on the population. And our committee was reviewing these regulations. And the minister had told the National Assembly that he is ready to review any regulation that the National Assembly deems to be unreasonable and unjustifiable in order to deal with the circumstances. That assurance has been given. Members were concerned about Lumo. He said that, well, Lumos are open market. With negotiation with the local government, they can operate. You've heard me talk about the mosque and say that, well, we should be critical about closures. We can use other mechanism that is just restriction of grouping so that people will know that it's about health that they are concerned with. And he's amenable to that. But what is fundamental, listen to this. Under Section 34, subsection 5, the National Assembly has power to revoke the regulations any day. It does not mean that it lasts for 21 days before the National Assembly can revoke the regulation, or it lasts for 45 days. No. Any day the National Assembly, whether it's 2 days after it is established, can revoke the regulations. So when you have power to revoke the regulations, which are the issues, the instruments that we are concerned with, then what is the problem? So for some of us, we don't see a problem. We believe that it's a conceptual problem that some people are having, and therefore we are unable to come to rescind the decision yesterday, and that is what is being negotiated. That's where the horse trading is taking place, so that hopefully each of us will have the right conceptualization of our task.
It appears abnormal for the National Assembly just to rise up and then adjourn. We saw in the other paper that the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs should have been here. So what happened around that?
Well, you must bear in mind that the whole session is an emergency session. And as an emergency session, the executive brought its issues. One of the issues is to extend the state of emergency and the regulations. The other issue is to be able to have a revised budget, even supplementary budget. So it means that all this is about fighting COVID-19, because some people are saying certain economic issues would have to be dealt with, certain needs of vulnerable people. So these are the issues that this session is designed to address. So if you cut the head, where is the body? So nothing is left. So that's why the speaker is trying to save the head. So by adjourning, it gives us time to go and look at the issues, and maybe we'll end up resolving the conceptual difficulties. It's a conceptual problem, and we believe that once each of us conceive the issue as it should be conceived, we will know what to do.
Honorable, thank you very much. We all know that the ultimate aim of this emergency, this extraordinary session, is to help contain the further spread of COVID-19 in the Gambia. And as at now, the first 45 days that was initially declared almost elapsed. And then the 21 days also that was recommended by the committee was not supported during the last sitting that was on Saturday. So don't you think this will like somehow have an impact in our effort to uh, uh, contain the spread of COVID-19 in the Gambia?
Well, of course, because the issue here is about leadership. There is executive leadership and parliamentary leadership.
So here, Amadou, you can see the situation is happening, and it is becoming much more clearer that that these sessions have been, you know, closed for the day, and then this will give the both Parliament and the Cabinet enough time to come up with another measure to tackling the issue of COVID-19. So, but as things look right now, it is not normal, and that's why every member of Parliament would call it an extraordinary situation.
Exactly, a very abnormal situation. Just one lastly, of course, sessions adjourned to tomorrow. What are we to expect? Should the executive appear, or what are the foreseen things tomorrow at the National Assembly?
As far as the situation at hand today is concerned, tomorrow's sessions might really go back to the issue of extension of the state of emergency. And government requested for this session, so it is extraordinary to address the issue of state of public emergency. And it appears that the National Assembly could not continue for other discussion without dealing with this one. Although they have dealt with it, but they voted against it. So government will have to now think of how best to do the amendment that will satisfy the yes vote for members of the National Assembly. So it appears that, things are not over unless and until the extension is achieved, because the president wouldn't want to make the declaration by himself since he knew he has the powers. Now the National Assembly has to do this so that it is considered of national interest.
All right, thank you very much. We got to leave it at that for now, and of course for today. We look forward to tomorrow's sit-ins, and we want to thank you so much for the good job, and thank you for your time again.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you,
right.
Amadou.
Thank you very much. Of course, correspondent and of Africa TV there, Ibrahim Prespa at the National Assembly in Banjul, speaking to us live. And yeah, that brings this special edition.
Okay, one last shot.
And
you have the chairman of the special committee.
Okay, there you go. We can speak
of
to him
the
then.
state of emergency, who was about to talk to us early on board because of the consultations with the speaker early morning.
Okay.
He will give us the view inside the chambers when they were there. Honorable, welcome back.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Give us a summary of what has happened today.
Well, today we were expected to actually reconsider our decision, the decision that we passed on Saturday, which is to completely reject 45 days extension that the government or the executive was actually seeking. Now, this morning we made some consultations, myself and with the other committee members, to see if we can actually agree on something. But again, that actually didn't work out. So essentially, the Minister of Finance was also supposed to come to table a supplementary appropriation based on the extension, because there are certain things that he really wanted to do for the Gambian population. But because of the fact that we couldn't do the extension, then he also have to go hold back and then rework on really what he wanted to do. What he really wanted to do for the Gambian people, I do not know. I'm not privy to the information, but I do know that if the extension was passed, probably it's going to come with something, but actually didn't materialize. But consultation is going to continue, even though we've adjourned for till tomorrow. But I'm going to continue the consultations because I believe in my heart that we need to extend this state of public emergency, because this is a national health emergency that we need to be really very careful of.
So part of your consultation in the morning, what exactly did you discuss? Why there is no agreement?
Well, some of them are still, they really want to get the government to do what they're supposed to do in terms of the enforcement and stuff like that. But the explanation I was given is the fact that even though when we met with the police or the security the first time we in the parliament, they told us very clear that they lack tools, which is the personal protective equipment that we're having right now. But at the time, also the minister says they at the time, they were in the process of actually procuring some and also giving to the security sector. So I can actually read between the lines the fact that this is a health emergency and they have some personal protective equipment. It's going to be grave for them to take everything and give to the security sector because they don't know how the pandemic in the Gambia is going to pan out. They didn't know that. But as of last week, the minister told me clearly they have over 1 million personal protective equipment, gloves, and et cetera, they do have, which means right now they should have enough to be able to supply the security sector for them to be able to do their job. Because again, you cannot push the security men to go risk their lives because they have families like us. To go out there to try to enforce something and they do not know the health implication of that because they do not have any personal protective equipment. So some of them, they were saying that the government must do this before I can agree to this 45. But again, in the conversation, I try to tell them this is the thing. It is an emergency. So you cannot just say, well, because government is doing this or A is not doing this, so I'm not going to do that as well. But the most important thing is let's do our part and let's ensure the Gambia, the entire country knows that we are doing our part. If the executive fail to do their part, that is on them. But as a parliament, I think the onus is on us to do what is required of us to do. And that's the reason why I was doing a lot of consultations to ensure that we really reconsider our decision not to agree for the extension.
Already now the parliament has suspended or have adjourned for tomorrow, but we knew also on the other paper that the Minister of Finance should have been here. Why didn't you know before the session starts?
No, we knew, but some of the things the minister really wanted to do has a direct connection with the extension of the state of public emergency. Now, if the minister is going to come to give us any supplementary appropriation, which is the additional expenditure he needs to make in this country, based on the situation that's happening in the country, and we refuse to extend it, then it may not make sense for him to do that. And that's the reason why he has to go back to the drawing board. I don't know whatever it was supposed to be, that's why he has to go back. And maybe by tomorrow when they come back, maybe we'll have some information about really what he wanted to do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Because maybe what is likely to happen tomorrow?
Well, parliamentary things are really very unpredictable. Because today, the situation today, I really didn't expect that to happen. Because what I expect is for us to come, have consultation among ourselves to see how best we can salvage the situation. The most important thing is the image of the parliament is at stake. And we have to be frank to ourselves. The image of the parliament is at stake because a party came to work with us, but we are not willing. That's the way I can say it. So, but again, let's see what happens tomorrow. Maybe there's another chance for tomorrow and Wednesday. Let's see if we can help ourselves by salvaging the situation. Thank you very much.
That was chairman of the select committee on the special select committee on the implementation of emergency powers at the National Assembly here. So, meaning that until tomorrow, Tuesday, the sessions have been adjourned for now, and no other discussion is taking place here. From this point, I will hand over to our studio in Wellingra for Amadou to do the wrapping up with you. Until then, bye from Banjul.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ibrahim Presbar, there, of course, live from the National Assembly. And we couldn't have ended this session without talking to the chairman of the Special Select Committee on the Emergency Response of the COVID-19 in the Gambia. There you go. Of course, sittings have been adjourned to tomorrow. And of course, this is after lawmakers rejected the, of course, the government's proposal to extend the state of emergency for another 45 days. And today they came back, but nothing seemingly happened, as you were watching live on Africa TV. But of course, we are going to end it here for now and for today. Hope that tomorrow proceedings and sittings would happen. And of course, we'll come back here to bring you live happenings and proceedings in the National Assembly in Banjul. Once again, thank you very much for watching and stay safe. Bye for now.